Welcome, Straight Hook Fishing. We're talking live today. I hope y'all are working. I hope the audio is working. You guys got me? Um, Today's topic is going to be things that you can do to get better at fishing. The little things you can do, the things that a lot of people don't talk about, basically, is what today's topic is going to be. If you have any questions, ask them along the way. Be glad to answer all of the questions. Um, I think a lot of people would say that the best way to get better at fishing would be time on the water. Um, with that said, though, I feel like that's not necessarily the only part of it.
No, definitely not.
Um, I think it's quality time on the water. It's how you spend your time on the water is really where it is.
Yeah, I would think that, doing research, right? YouTube videos, um, going out with other people that have been fishing for a long time and just sitting on the back of the boat and paying attention. A lot of people I've seen go out to fish and they don't pay attention to everything, right? Like to be better, you need to definitely pay attention to everything that's going on. Any little thing that's going on, like if I see the water ripple weird, right? I'm
Yeah.
trying to pay attention to that. Like the wind starts changing or is blowing in a certain direction. There's things to start thinking about
The other
with
half,
that.
the other part of that would be like, okay, so if I go on the water and I throw a drop shot the entire day, and every day I go throw drop shot the entire day, am I learning fishing or am I learning drop shot? Like you can learn patterns from that, but I don't know if you can necessarily get too much farther. Like you can get the basics with drop shot, right? That's probably not a great example, but let's say spinnerbait,
Yeah.
right? So you can throw a spinnerbait, you can learn a lot, but are you really learning? Now, if you get into the days where you're killing them on drop shot or you're killing them on spinnerbait, sorry, you're killing them on spinnerbait, the best thing to do, yeah, we're sideways, in case you didn't know. Um, we're sideways because we have to be sideways, otherwise we have to cuddle with each other, and we may fish with each other a lot, but we don't cuddle.
Not too much.
Um, if you take the days where you're killing them on spinnerbait and then you pick up a different bait, what else can I do to get bit that exact day? Now I know I have a pattern of where they are, right? Like, okay, they're eating in 5 foot off the bank in a weed clump.
Yeah.
What other baits can I throw in that weed clump or around that weed clump in that situation and get bit from it?
So, for example, like if we're fishing the Delta and he picks up a spinner bait, like what we're talking about, and he starts sticking fish. If we're pre-fishing, I'm going to pick up something different. I'm not going to throw the same thing that he's throwing because I want to see what I could get bit on, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to pull out underspin. I'm going to pull out chatterbait. I'll throw a buzz bait, right? Those are all similar baits to that spinner bait, just seeing if I could get something else to go. Because we know that the fish are there. We know that what they're eating. Let's try to figure out something different that would maybe have a bigger bite, maybe have more bites. There's been times
Consistency.
consistency. There's been times where we've been out there doing that, and one bait is definitely a stronger pull or getting bit more consistently than the spinnerbait, even though he's already started catching the fish with the spinnerbait.
Yeah. And yet that's, and then the other thing with that is, let's say I'm throwing that spinnerbait and I'm doing really well. He picks up a chatterbait. He's picking up a fish here or there. And then all of a sudden the sun gets higher or whatever changes, the wind picks up. I'm no longer getting bit on a spinnerbait, but he's getting bit on a chatterbait. So you can actually see the transition if you're working with each other, and that goes back to the quality of time. The If I'm pre-fishing and I know I'm getting bit on a spinnerbait quality enough, and he's throwing a chatterbait or whatever, I'll actually put the spinnerbait down, pick up a underspin or crankbait or something, and then go down the bank. And if I'm not getting bit or he's not getting bit, then I'll pick up the spinnerbait again for like 5 minutes. And then if I start getting bit again, then I know that bite's still going and I move on. Now you're finding two different baits instead of the one separate bait. And that's where having a co-angler that's up on the front deck with you running along that bank helps a lot.
Yeah, sometimes even though we do fish a lot, both on the front of the boat, and it's a kind of a harmony when we do it, right? We know what each other is doing. If one steps back, one steps forward, we will take over the trolling motor depending on who's stepping where. But all the years that I've been fishing and stepping up to owning my own boat and fishing, I fished on a lot of back seats. And I've learned a lot fishing on the back seats because you could learn a lot from a lot of different people. And you could take a little bit from every single person that you fish with and put it together and make it your own style. Fishing on the back of the boat, though, there's been a lot of times where people are on the front of the boat are doing something that I can't do the exact same being on the back of the boat. So you have to figure out your own style or a different way. And again, paying attention to those little things, like even when I'm fishing with James and we're fishing down the bank, say at the Delta, he's hitting holes with whatever bait he's throwing. I'm paying attention to which ones he's hitting because I'm trying to hit the opposite ones or ones he's missed.
Yep.
And doing that, you can actually pick up more fish than the front boat.
Yeah, you can definitely outfish the person in the front if you are paying enough attention to the person in the front and they haven't completely clued on to what is the exact bite. You can still catch fish no matter what.
Correct.
There's multiple co-anglers out there that basically, when they get into the pro level and they talk about how, oh, you can't fish behind them, and there's co-anglers that can outfish, and what they're doing is they're just paying attention to what they're doing.
Right.
They're paying attention to what the front person does. And that would, like what he's saying is another tip, is go fishing with various different people. Corey's got a comment that says, biggest wintertime misconceptions. I will say this, from fishing from other people and other YouTubes and stuff like that, one of the misconceptions with winter is that they got to be deep. They must be deep. They got to be on those outside edges, deep walls, or they have the bait pinned or whatever.
Offshore humps.
Offshore humps. Those are valid places. Don't get me wrong. They are great. But the fish that get left alone are the ones that are up in 5 foot of water in the middle of a storm. No one's out there fishing, first of all. And second of all, they're looking out deep. No one even checks up shallow.
Right.
I've caught a fish every month for the last 3+ years, probably 5 years, in less than 10 foot of water every month. And a lot of people don't think that there's that deep or could be that deep. And in fact, that's kind of my December pattern, is to stay shallow and throw active baits and just find the cruisers, and they're usually a larger bite.
That's another part of that winter misconception is slow down, go very slow for the winter. There are times that you could throw something active and just hammer them. Yeah. For instance, we just went to New Melones. We thought they were going to be out deeper, and we found them shallow throwing jerk baits. And when I was throwing the jerk bait, I thought, because the water temp was cold, that it was going to be a slow pop, pop, wait, pop. And it ended up, I started just to burn it in, and they came running after it. So I threw it like I would regularly throw a jerk bait up in the shallow water, and I was catching fish in the middle of the winter in a storm.
Yeah. When everything should tell you that they're gonna lock down and go down deep and just hug the bottom, no, they were up shallow and pushing, and like up on flats, like on the edge of the flats, actively pushing and running through that stuff.
Yeah, and it was a blast.
Yeah, it was definitely fun. Yeah, when you cast out, like I was throwing drop shot, and that's again same thing, right? Like he's throwing a jerk bait on that day. We don't even have a tournament. We're not pre-fishing. He's throwing a jerk bait. I'm purposely not throwing a jerk bait. I threw a rig, crankbait, all sorts of stuff, and then threw the a rig or drop shot was the what kicked out the most. But you don't. The better way to learn how to fish is to not throw the same thing as the other person in the boat.
Right.
Always be different. And I'm not talking like color difference where you're like, oh, he has a red flake and I don't have a red flake. I mean like completely different bait. If he's on the bottom, I'm in the middle. If he's on top, I'm on the bottom. Whatever. If top, middle, just try and break that column down and move it around a lot, and you can learn a lot more a lot faster.
Yeah. Another thing is like even the same exact baits, we fish very similar but very different.
Yeah.
So picking up the exact same bait that he's throwing might not be it for me, and I could adjust to something that is similar in color or in body or how it reacts, and
change
start
the action.
Change the action and start catching those fish.
Yeah. Change that action up, mix it up. Don't be afraid to mix it up. Tyson asked or says, hello from Central Cali. What region are you guys? We're out of Fairfield, Vacaville area, but we'll go down to Malones, Pedro, Comanche, Clear Lake, Berryessa,
More towards
Delta.
More towards the Sacramento.
Home for us is basically Berryessa, Delta. That's the two that we probably fish the most.
Yeah. The shortest drive.
The shortest drive for those quick days, but I do like Malones. They definitely are fun.
And I really like Comanche.
He likes Comanche. I hate Comanche.
It's a great lake. Great lake.
But those kind of lakes. There is a lake, Tulloch, that I keep hearing about that I do need to go down to. And then there's a couple other lakes that are in that area that I want to hear about. Yeah, we got to do that.
All right.
Yeah, or Cali too, for sure, Cali.
Yeah.
North Bay, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Corey, when do you decide if it's a pattern? When do you stop running a pattern? So when I decide it's a pattern is when I've hit basically the third place. When I feel like I can call shots, that's when I think is a pattern, right? So usually the first place you go to, let's say it's a rock flat. We'll demonstrate Malones. We'll go back to Malones Day. Okay, we were going down the bank. It's hard, like big chunk rock and all that. Then we get to this flat where it kind of comes out and then drops on a quick edge. We start picking up fish there. And there was a lot of fish there, okay? Then we move and we change spots or whatever. We go to another place that has that same kind of flat with a drop on it. Pick up fish. We're like, okay, this is probably it. And then we get to the third one where it wasn't as much of a flat, but it was a softer degree bank. Once it had that softer degree and bam, we were catching fish, we knew like that's the pattern.
Yeah.
Like that's what you need to run. And they weren't on that day. It was fun to catch them, but they weren't that big. I mean, they were a couple pounds.
Yeah, we're 2-pounders.
They weren't like kickers or anything like that, but they're definitely the active fish, and you're not dragging a drop shot in 60 foot of water.
Catching 2-pound fish in the middle of January in New Melones in a rainstorm. It was pouring down rain on a jerkbait. It was awesome. But that is exactly what you're talking about, and that's where I'd figure a pattern. If I catch a couple fish in a spot and it's on this and I can see multiple fish there, I'm going to pick up and try to think of something completely different but the same on that lake and go try to see if it does this exact same thing. And if it does, it's for sure a pattern, and that's kind of what I want to run with.
And try the same area. So in other words, like let's say it's the north end of Berryessa and you find them on rock flats. Don't run all the way to the Narrows and try rock flats down there, because you can't, more than likely, you can't build that pattern if you're changing so much variable of water. But if you're up north and you hop a couple of spots and you build a pattern up north, the way to get better is to turn around and drive to the south end of the lake. Try that pattern down there. Did it work? Did it not work? If you have an established pattern in a section of the lake and move an entire section of the lake and you can't repeat that pattern, you could either go back and check to make sure that's still a pattern because the day might have changed, but now you know when this is happening, I can't do it here, or possibly can't do it here. You can cut down your areas of where you want to float between from being able to bounce back and forth. And as far as stop running a pattern, it's whether the fish gets smaller, because there's definitely times where the bigger fish will run into that pattern and then phase out of it. And then the other thing would be if you stop getting bit. And then you just modify that pattern. They're going to be in that area near that pattern. You just need to
figure out where they went.
Figure out what bait they changed to, figure out where they went. But you have where they came from, right? Like if somebody was broke down on a road and you're trying to find them and they said, hey, the last exit I saw was this, you know where to start. And you know, okay, I know what direction they may or may not be going, and I know what direction, where they started at. And sometimes that key can be a lot when you're trying to establish the next pattern.
I think also talking about the whole thing of pattern and getting better as a fisherman is going out and finding the fish, like before a tournament or something like that, and using that philosophy of, hey, this is where the fish were. They either went that way or that way. Yeah. They went shallow or they went deep. Let's try to figure out where they went. And that will help you be a better tournament fisherman at that point in time, right? Because at least you know where they were.
And that kind of goes back to time on the water, right? Because if I know, especially if, let's say I go out one weekend and I see him here. Then I go out the next weekend and I see him here. Then I go out the next weekend and I see him here. A good reasonable guess is just keep going down the points.
Yeah.
And you'll pick up those things or whatever it is. Or versus the more time on the water that you locate those fish, the more time you do that. Now, I don't want to sack them in pre-fishing. I just want to know where they are and how they got bit. And I'll move on and try to find more patterns, more ways. And then the next week, I may forward scan them. I may fish them. I just want to know where they are. And that's all I'm doing is just figuring out where their bus stops are, basically, on their route. Tyson asks, or says, that's where I've been wanting to get to is Comanche. Tolic has nice bags. 28 won there not long ago. That is what I heard about Tolic, is that it has good bags. I do know some people that have fished it and they're having troubles cracking that place, but I believe once you crack them, it's a small-ish enough lake that they can pattern out, from what I understand. I've never been there myself. Comanche, what lake do you say Comanche fish is like around here?
Oof.
Any?
Nah, Comanche's Comanche.
Actually,
you know,
it's kind of a mixture between lakes.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixture. I think it replicates Berryessa some.
In some aspects it replicates Berryessa. Some aspects it replicates
Don Pedro.
Yeah. It actually reminds me of a lake in Tennessee, but you guys aren't going to know that one.
They could.
But basically the problem with Comanche is that, or I shouldn't say problem, but what I don't like about Comanche is that they're spotted bass and they have an attention span of a 3-year-old, and they're here today, gone tomorrow, or here today, gone in a minute. They are not afraid to move between 60 foot of water and 2 foot of water. And if you can't keep up with them or don't have the patience to figure them out, they can be a pain in the butt.
Though
they definitely have feed windows, and if you get right, you get right in a hurry.
Comanche does plant Florida Strange largemouth there also.
Yeah, but spots are the predominant bait or the predominant bass there.
Yeah.
There is smallmouth in there. I don't think I've ever caught one though.
I think I've seen one. I don't know that I caught it.
No, I did. I forgot. I caught one. Caught one up the arm. I know it exists. That's it. Never seen way in the tournaments. Dry Creek Tubes rule on Malones. My PB 9.6 came on a tube a year ago there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
9.6 on Malones. My PB for Malones is 8.5, 8 something. Caught on a popper in June. That was an awesome day.
Yeah.
Caught a lot of fish on popper, and that actually kind of brings us back to our topic, which was time on the water. I was spending like 80 days a year on the water that time, and I was actually driving for another spot, for another area, and something in my brain told me, don't go there, go over here. And I was over there, and within a couple of casts, caught a 3 something, and then like couple casts later, caught that 8 something. 8.5, something like that, 8.75. Caught that 8 something, and then caught a couple more like 2-pounders or 1.5 pounds or something like that. But that was, I have no clue why I needed to go there or thought I needed to go there. I just was on my way into a creek channel and turned right, and it ended up working out, and it was laid out. And that's my other thing with one of my other points with time on the water, or not time on the water, but things that you could do to get better would be trust your gut.
Yeah.
We've mentioned on this channel a couple times, but Brian Latimer has a theory, because he keeps getting asked, when do you move? When do you move? When do you move? Same theory. You can't, if I'm sitting on this couch right now and I need to go to the bathroom, he can't tell me I need to go to the bathroom. No one else can tell me that. I just know. I just know it's time. I know how long I need to be before it really is time. Trust your gut. Keep moving. And then when you do move with your gut, you'll actually slowly develop a pattern, and you'll be able to tell what your gut says next time.
What's kind of crazy is that straight shootout that we did, and you're watching the 4 screens, 4 different boats, and 3 of the boats decide to move all at the same time.
Within 10 minutes of each other.
Yeah, and they're not anywhere near each other, right?
Yeah, you can't see each other.
It's kind of weird.
And then an hour goes by, 45 minutes goes by, or whatever, and 3 of the boats decide to move within 15 minutes of each other. Yeah. And again, no one can see each other. Right. Or for the most part, no one can see each other. There's only like a couple times where they like come close to each other. But it's really interesting how the decisions, even though you think you're deciding on your own or whatever it is, that there's like an internal timer that people use. Right. Where they move, and then it just runs off of that, and it's really just trust it. And then the same thing is picking up baits. If you're going down the bank and you say to yourself, which I'm horrible at this, I'll say to myself, man, I should really throw a jerkbait right now, and then I don't get it out, and then like 10 minutes later I'm like, man, I should throw a jerkbait right now. And then 10 minutes later, I say, man, I should throw a jerkbait right now. And I never listen to myself. And then I get back into the end of the tournament, and first place goes, oh, yeah, I got halfway through the day, and I picked up a jerkbait. And I'm like, cool.
What's awesome is he actually says it out loud, too.
Yep. And I noticed this from editing footage, how many times I'll say something, or I'll actually finally pull it out, and all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. Like, your gut is telling you, just listen to it. Anything you got to add to that?
No.
I took a fellow out who never caught a bass on Maloney's, gave him a tube, caught about 35 bass that day. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's Maloney's, when they had the shutdown where they closed down Maloney's.
Yeah.
We actually ended up going there because we got tired of fishing other lakes, and we looked it up, and it said Malona's was open. And or no, that was Pedro.
That was
That was
Pedro.
Pedro. I'm sorry, that was Pedro. We went to Pedro on opening day, which we didn't know was opening day for them opening back up, and I don't even know how many fish we caught.
It was fun.
That was before I was
I think it was our
recording.
first day on Pedro
It was our
too
first
for a
day
long
on
time.
Pedro, and it was stupid. Like, I don't even know how many fish we caught. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, we didn't find that out until we were actually talking to somebody out there fishing.
Yeah, yeah, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it just opened." We're like, "Oh, well, no wonder they're stupid. Like,
Yeah.
they're stupid, stupid."
Yeah.
It was damn near on one of the banks. It was like every cast, every
Yeah.
other cast at worst for a while.
Yeah.
Um, do you guys think it's possible to compete against forward-facing sonar in traditional in a tournament? I will tell you this right now: we're in a club. There's probably a handful of us that have forward-facing sonar. There's a chunk who don't. It is mixed every time of who's in the top three
Yeah.
of whether they have forward-facing or not. Um, you can figure them out a little bit faster with forward-facing, but you can still never figure them out. Or you can spend a lot more time fishing for the right fish that you can see because they're the right size and you know they're bass because they triggered earlier that are still there that they aren't going to eat. So you're wasting time. So it can actually hurt you if you don't know when to put it down.
I look at forward facing sonar as like it's not the end all. It's just a tool to speed up your decision making of what you want to do, like color, how you're, say, a jerk bait, right? How they're reacting to your jerk bait. If you're popping them hard and they turn around and run, obviously you need to slow it down, right? Like all it's doing is helping us figure out what they want faster, right? Speeding up that decision making faster than throwing a spoon. Say throw a spoon out there and they run from the spoon. They just leave. If you didn't have forward facing sonar, you're probably going to throw that spoon for 15, 20 minutes and not catch anything. Or you throw the spoon and they run from it, be like, oh, no, that's not it.
And then, so the other thing about forward facing sonar is Comanche tournament in October.
Yeah.
October. The worst time to go to Comanche, don't go to Comanche in October. Yeah. The bite, the fish are completely dead flat against the bottom. You can barely see them on forward scan. If you are not really good with it and have faith in what area you're in, it doesn't help you at all.
No.
Not whatsoever. You might as well not have it. It helps you because now you're just fishing an area and a pattern. You're no longer fishing the visual, what you can see. And that definitely, if you run around looking for fish, it's going to be like the whole lake is empty because they're all sucked to the bottom.
Yeah.
That first thing in the morning, they're up and moving around and then they disappear.
Yeah.
It's not because they swam away. It's just they suck to the bottom. And it's forward-facing sonar, as much as everyone says, it's just a tool. You can't. If you don't,
even the delta, you can't. The only thing I use the delta for is seeing where the weed lines are.
Yeah.
Out in front of us. That's it.
Yeah. If you put it on perspective mode or forward scan or whatever, if you have it on regular or perspective, you could just see the weed lines, especially like deep weed lines, and you can punch or chatterbait the weed line, or you can find out that there is no weeds.
Right.
That's really about it. I mean, there's people using it in other ways, but for the general people, that's about all you can do with it.
Right.
So, you definitely can compete, and it's proven numerous times. And the number one famous one is John Cox. John Cox cuts checks in his tournaments very consistently, and he still doesn't have forward scan. As of a year ago, he had spot lock, or 2 years ago, he had spot lock. He didn't even have spot lock, fishing in the highest level possible. Corey asks, high skies are overcast, pre-front conditions in Clearwater Reservoir, and why? Does this change in more stained bodies like the Delta or Clear Lake? I'm guessing if you want it high skies or overcast, what we prefer. I will say post front in clear water can really suck if you're not a finesse fisherman
Yeah, if you can't slow down.
during certain times of the year. There are certain times of the year that I don't think they care about weather. Like they just don't care. And that's usually like the springtime warming trends where like every day it's a little bit warmer. The water's getting a little bit warmer every time. They don't seem to care as much. The very beginning of the year or like the late winter, they seem to care. But like the more towards spring that you get, like where we're at now, the less they seem to care. In that fall time though, largemouth will definitely care. But you can, if you go to the right lakes, you can switch it out with spots or smallmouth.
Yeah.
My best days ever that I could probably think of was high sun, no wind, and the other option was pouring down rain. Like been raining for days, pouring down rain. Those are probably my best days. And then the high sun, no wind is Clear Lake had a really good day with that. Delta had a really good day with that, and Malones had a really good day with that. Like, I don't know how to explain it besides like, it's when you find the right pattern, you're able to spread it out farther without the wind.
Yeah.
But that wind can help. Clear Lake's, I think, very current and wind driven.
Yeah. Most lakes are.
Anything you got for that? What's your preferred preferred weather?
Overcast. I like overcast. Well, one, I'm a ginger, so I get burned real easily. So
yeah, that's true.
Not standing out in the sun all day helps me a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I prefer the overcast, a little bit of wind. I feel like I could throw more. I have more options to throw different stuff, right? Because it's a little harder for them to see when it's that high sun, clear water, that, and no wind. It kind of takes a couple of things away. I think that I can't get bit as well on, right?
Yeah. The wind, man. It's like they all have good days though.
They do.
You just have to adapt to them all, and that brings up a good point. As far as getting better at fishing, fish every day you can.
Yes.
Whether it is crap weather, great weather, high sun, low sun, clouds, smoke, doesn't matter. Fish all of those days, all of those experiences when it comes tournament time or when you can actually get out on the water. You'll be able to use those past experiences to be able to grow off of.
Yeah.
And it'll become easier as you fish those crap days. Like I said, some of my best days were in pouring down rain when the whole lake is empty.
Yeah, that's going back to fishing the club, right? Where you want to be in a point race, so you want to, have fun with the guys and be involved with it. And it's almost like every time that we have a club tournament, right? Like for us, we're scheduled out for the year. So that weekend we go is the weekend we're going to go. It doesn't matter if it's raining, it's windy, if post front, that's when we're going. So to go out and fish all those days, all the different days, will make you a better fisherman because you will figure it out, right?
Yeah, you kind of have to figure out.
Yeah.
It forces you to figure it out.
Right.
And it makes you adapt to the day. And those adaptations and those times you trust in your gut is really what gets you down that road. If you only fish on a specific, high sun, warm days, 80 pluses, you're going to get really good at 80 pluses.
Yeah.
But outside of that, you get one cloudy day or the winter or the season turns around, you're not going to know what to do because you've only fished one condition the entire time. If you try and go outside of that condition, you kind of like pigeonhole yourself into that.
Yeah.
What you're saying is true. My best bass have come off of just what you explained. Ah, hey, I said something right. Oh, maybe you said something right.
One of us.
We, we don't get it often. We don't get right often. So, good evening, Fishing with Camo Joe. Pedro's Feast or Famine. They definitely aren't afraid to school there.
No. Done really good
And
there.
when you get on the right school, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And when you get on the even if you get on the wrong school where it's just a bunch of babies,
It's still awesome.
You
Yeah.
catch a bunch of fish, not during a tournament, but otherwise.
No, even if I'm in a tournament and I'm catching a lot of fish, at least I'm catching fish. I know I'm doing something right.
Yeah. Fishing with Camo Joe says, anybody else hit the like button? I appreciate that, Camo Joe. I appreciate it. Have you guys ever fished Woodward Reservoir in Oakdale? No, but I've heard about it. That's one of the ones that I've heard about. It's the best place I've ever fished for quality. My best there was a 9.4 smallmouth. Oh, largemouth 9.4. I was gonna say
That's a big smallmouth.
And a 6.1 smallmouth. That's still a big smallmouth.
Yeah.
That's a tank. I don't think I broke 4 pounds with a smallmouth. My PB smallmouth is actually out of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Caught on an A rig, and still not a 6.
No.
Best 5 there is 42.7. Like I said, I've heard about that place. It's one of those local places that a lot of people don't talk about. So hopefully you don't get hate mail on that one.
Yeah, no doubt.
Brian Getz is on here. What do you prefer at the Delta, coming or outgoing tides, and why do the fish move in and out depending on the tides?
I will tell you, I want outgoing tide.
Outgoing tide, well,
That's what I want. I want outgoing tide because I feel like
high to outgoing tide.
yeah, high to outgoing tide because I feel like, and it's all about angles. It's all about what you could throw. You got a little bit more water in the beginning, right?
It loads them.
I think of things like if there's water back here and the fish are out here, outgoing tides bringing everything that they want to eat out to them, right? And
Yeah.
I want to fish them out here, right? Like that's what I like to fish is that set up a trap, right? Like that's what I'm thinking about.
So basically what he's saying is he knows where the dining room table is.
Yes.
He just wants to supply it straight from the kitchen. So if
Yep.
you know they're sitting there on the dining room table, you just want to give them a feed line straight from the kitchen right to where they want to go.
Yeah.
So it can set them up when they have that changed. I will say this for the Delta. If you want to learn tides, my best advice for that is every time you catch a quality fish on the Delta, especially if you have Lowrance, make a waypoint at that spot with a very specific icon.
Right. One that you could remember.
One that you'll remember that this means bigger fish. You could do this on all the lakes too. This definitely translates to other lakes, okay? On a Lowrance, you're able to go back in time, or you use your tide charts, okay? I have a waymark at this location at this time. I can go on my tide chart, look up where I was in the tide chart later on, and figure out what part of the tide, how big the swing was, how big the swings were on the days before and the days after,
Yep.
and when I got bit. And then you can remember after that, okay, it was on a chatterbait or whatever it was. You can actually take that same pattern, that same flow of when you got bit and all that, and go back to it in the future if you can rematch those lines back up again and turn them back on again and basically be able to call your shots.
With that type of information, you can identify areas that, hey, I'm only going to go to this on outgoing tide. I'm only going to go and fish this on incoming tide. But again, that's time on the water.
And it's not foolproof,
No.
obviously, because they're living human, or they're living humans, living beings.
Right.
But you can narrow things down from that, and you can actually kind of grow on that. Like if I can consistently get bit at high switch at an area, I'm going to go find a similar place that sets up kind of the same way and fish that on a high switch and see if I can get that to work. If it doesn't work, then I'm just going to keep hopping rock bank, or keep hopping points that I think will fit that pattern, and see what gets bit and what doesn't get bit. And then I have another symbol for if I get bit. It's the fork and spoon.
Yeah.
And I can actually keep track of which island points I get bit on, and slowly be able to build which points are consistent and not consistent, especially in the Delta, because you will notice certain islands set up better than other ones, or more consistent than other ones.
Yeah.
And you can take this and go to a lake for the same exact thing. You can make your big waypoints. You can go to docks on Clear Lake and mark the docks on Clear Lake. And you will notice that every time you go back, you only get bit between this dock and this dock. And then you can go to that dock, and you only get bit there. And you can keep track of it, and you can find out that no matter what time of the year you go to, more often than not, you are only bit between 6 of the docks out of 30. But this whole time you've been thinking, oh yeah, I go down that stretch of docks and I catch a bunch of fish.
Right.
But when you actually start keeping track of it, you find out you're only getting bit consistently on 6 of those docks. You can get bit outside of that, but consistently you're bit in those areas.
Back to the Delta though, when you do find that spot and you start marking that spot of say the outgoing tide, for example, make sure you go back and fish it on the opposite tide also.
Yeah.
Figure it out, right? Like for the Delta, I would say break down an area, fish it multiple times, right? Different times, different tides. Fish that area, figure that area out. Once you figure that area out, you start growing, because the Delta is huge.
Yeah.
You could get spun out really fast driving around, but pick an area, fish an area, figure it out, and then you could use that information on other areas and figure out which tide you like the best.
And that's another great tip of how to be better, is instead of trying to fish all of Lake Berryessa, all of Delta, all of Malones, pick an area. Just pick one section that's known for fishing, known for people to catch fish there. Pick that area and just keep going to that area. Pick a spot that has shallow, deep, rock, weed, has a little bit of everything, and just keep going to that one area, break it down, keep changing baits, keep rotating through, and shuffle back inside there, and you'll pick up a lot of that bigger picture. And then once you get that bigger picture, like, so for instance, we went to Potato in Delta, okay? And we learned Potato really well. Now we can take that, pick it up, take all that knowledge and move to other parts of the Delta and be able to put patterns together faster.
Yeah.
And be able to go, which is, I had a really good day on that high sun punching on the Delta. And the main reason why I figured that out is because of Potato. And I was not, I forgot what it's called. Not disappointment. Forgot what slough I was in. It's on video. It's in one of my old videos. Just punching, and it's, again, back to the Potato stuff that we learned, or that I learned. Hey, Uncle Brian, it's Sierra.
Hola.
Always find moving water for Delta. Unless it's winter, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it does help, but there's some times where I don't know. I don't fish Delta in the winter because it sucks. I'll go to Maloney's or Berryessa or
I'll go
Clear
to
Lake or
Clearwater Lake or Clear Lake or
anywhere else but Delta.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I like Delta when it's on a warming trend or hot.
yeah, when I can throw active baits and I'm not dragging a drop shot or a Cinco around.
Yeah.
But moving water in the summer is king. Moving water and shade in the Delta, those are the two
Yes.
things that you need to look for the most.
Yep.
Um, Tyson. What had happened to me was, if you wonder why I turn my head sideways, is because I have to read. What I had happen to me on most of the waters I fish is that after a 2-year span, fish aren't in my regular places and old places. I never caught. I'm finding fish in some of those areas. That goes back to changing baits. They do have schools that'll move, and that's a lot of having to do with water level, especially with Malones, Pedro, Comanche, Berryessa. That water level fluctuates a lot. Clear Lake, that water level doesn't fluctuate as much, still does. And then Delta is obviously not. It's tidal. As far as moving areas, a lot of the times you have trained your fish for your baits.
Yeah.
Is kind of what I'm running into. I've picked up a new, like, let's say we were throwing jerk baits a couple years back, and we picked up the jerk bait because we were throwing A-rig before that, and I stopped getting bit on an A-rig, couldn't get bit. Picked up a jerk bait, started figuring that out in new areas, went back to my old areas, all the fish were still there. So all I was doing was fishing jerk baits in my old spots, picking them up, and then again did that with underspin.
Yeah.
So sometimes a new approach to an old spot, and then the other thing is your memory. You'll remember, oh, I was here during this time, and that goes back to making the waymarks or the waypoints. You can look at your waypoints and be like, wow, I was months off. I thought I was there in January. It turns out it was November.
Yeah. And then the water level, right? Like right now, most of the stuff in California is rising, right? So stuff that was there before is different now, a little bit deeper, or you're actually getting into stuff that the fish haven't seen in years. So they're not right back where you thought they were or thought they should be, right? So things to think about with that too.
Stuff does, like some of the places we went to on Malones is places that we specifically got to know because no matter where the water level is, there's still rock or boulder or whatever it is. Like, so if the water's really, really low that year, look up the bank, drive around the lake and look up the bank to find areas that are consistent, whether the water is where it is now or all the way at the top, what looks the most consistent the whole way up and down.
Yeah.
And focus on those areas. If you can figure out those fish, then you can use those as like a barometer, basically. You go to that place first, see how the fish are. If then you adapt to that little pocket, back to the fish a small area, get familiar with it. Adapt to that pocket and then spread it out for the lake. Build your pattern from there.
Yeah, definitely. Me and James, we pre-fish a lot, but typically we don't fish tournaments together.
No.
So typically we're running all this stuff down, figuring it out, and we think of different things when we go out and fish the tournament, right? And use all that information that we fished together with, because together we could break down water way faster together than we can by ourselves. And then we use that information, those tools, to fish the tournaments.
And then there's little observations. Even though we're pre-fishing with each other, there's little observations that when the tournament rolls around that he'll pick up or I pick up, but not both of us picked up.
Yeah.
Like there'll be little things where like when you're fishing your day in the tournament, it'll click. You'll just be like, wait a minute, that does make sense. And then it'll go, and then we'll get back to the ramp and I'll be like, or day 2, I'll go, hey, I figured this out like afterwards, after the tournament, right? And he's like, oh, I figured that out on Saturday.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. But we share information, but there's like always little nuances that just the human experience is going to give you that you're not going to get, and you can't share everything.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have those nuances.
And I will tell you that, like, what I've been noticing in the last like 3-4 years is every day is a new day. Like, no matter what you have, what you're putting together, be able to open-minded, be able to think about different things, be able to change, because the day is going to be changing. Like those days of, hey, I'm going to go out there for 2 days and just wreck them on this bait. I haven't found that in a long time.
And
it's
an hour to hour
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, you got to be open to changing it and changing up your what's going on to catch those fish.
Yeah, which goes back to the trust your gut.
Yeah.
And when to move and when to change things and when to run your pattern and bail on your pattern.
When not to be afraid to throw something that you don't usually throw.
The other thing is, if you do have a solid pattern that kind of peters out, wait a couple hours, check it, spot check it. Don't go crazy on it. Just spot check it. It's entirely possible that pattern came back, especially if it's a good enough pattern.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to check it up.
Yep.
So there's times where, again, you get back to the ramp and I'll find out in the afternoon the pattern I was trying to force in the morning came on in the afternoon, but because I abandoned it, it didn't. I needed to recheck it, but I didn't. But don't
Keeping them honest.
keep it honest, basically. But don't die on the vine.
Yeah.
JVig77. So you guys throw A-rigs a lot. How long do you throw it without getting bites before you set it down? This is actually where forward scan helps.
Yeah.
You can see their reaction to it. And in that reaction, as far as throwing it, I'll probably, just from going through my videos and watching my own footage, I'll probably throw it for about 15 minutes, half hour, sometimes up to an hour if I really think that it's supposed to be there without getting bit. It's probably in that ballpark. It's kind of back to that when to move thing, is when to put that bait put down.
Yeah.
As far as A-rigs, this year is actually in the last 3-4 years.
Yeah.
It was the first year the A-rigs have worked for us.
Yeah.
We've been picking it up and throwing it for the last couple of years, but they haven't eaten.
And like what you were just talking about that swing, there was a time where A-rig was it. We were catching fish on A-rig all the time, and then it slowed down. We couldn't really catch fish on the A-rig, and then we transitioned to a jerk bait, and everywhere we went, we threw jerk baits, and it got expensive, right? Like,
yeah, megabass.
Megabass.
A-rigs.
A-rigs, megabass.
My A-rigs are $22 fully loaded with everything on them. And actually, come to think of it, things have raised, so it's probably like $24 or something like that. And then I swapped that out with $25 jerk baits.
Yeah.
So
and then now there's something that we've talked about is the water. The water got low, right? Like, and we're jerk baiting, we're throwing underspin, and then now last year we had a really good winter and we got a lot of water, and the A-rig started turning back on.
And there's a lot more
structure.
Structure in the water, or shrapnel in the water. There's a lot more of that in the water. And I think that's part of what it is, because the last time the A-rig was working, the waters were high also. So this is preliminary. We don't actually have this down to pattern yet. It's just something that we've picked up, something we've noticed.
Yeah, the little things, again, getting better. The little things that we thought about, we talk about. And when we're out pre-fishing and we're fishing, we're talking about things and philosophies all the time.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think about this? I've noticed this. What do you think about that?
And then for the A-rig, part of that, in that half hour to an hour or whatever that I'm throwing it, I'm also changing bait colors if they're not. If they're rising on it, but don't eat it, or if they're just following it, I'll change colors. If I'm running that A-rig over the top and they barely come off the bottom, then I'm probably just going to put it away. I may change colors once, but I'm not. And then my colors, which I've said before, are Sight Flash,
Rainbow
Ghost
shad.
Rainbow, Rainbow Shad, Threadfin, and Bluegill Flash. Those are the only 5 colors that I'm going to throw. And it's going to be a variation of those. As far as I'm concerned, the rest of them are just different versions of the same 5 that I'm already throwing. And the whole point of that is white, mostly white, shad color, bright color, and dark color. That's the premise of that.
Yeah.
You can interchange that with a lot of different, like the Pro Blues and all those other colors. Those are just the ones that I picked. He throws whatever was on the bargain bin. And but he does change according to the same thing, darker to lighter.
Darker to lighter.
Darker, lighter, brighter, whiter.
And I'll throw all 5 baits different colors.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I think you got to go back some.
No, let's stop where it's at. When's your next 4-boat video for the viewers? Found it very educational. What we're saying right now, where we're saying a lot of that stuff, is in between the fish catches on that 4-hour video. There's a lot of really good stuff on there. If you haven't watched it,
Gems.
definitely need to go back. There's a lot of stuff that people don't talk about that's kind of like this stuff that no one's talking about. So I know it's 4 hours, but it's worth it in the end. You don't have to watch it all at once. And you'll also get to learn. It's basically, imagine you're on the water without having to be on the water. So
Right.
you can have it playing in the background at work or wherever you are, just playing in the background. And then we announce when there's a fish catch anyways. Like you hear it. Like, oh, there's hook set or whatever. And that's when you can look at the screen. Otherwise, you're just listening mostly for the first time.
Almost like a podcast.
Almost kind of like a podcast mix, but like a live footage kind of thing. The next one we're going to record April 13th, and it takes like 3 weeks for me to edit that video.
Yeah.
So it'll be end of April, early May.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that ballpark. And it'll be at Clear Lake. It'll be a Clear Lake video for April 13th. Weather provided, that should be awesome.
Yeah.
Should be a really good day. And I don't think I have all 4 boats lighting out yet. But yeah. Who broke the pole over in the corner? A door did. A door broke it. As I was shutting the door to my fishing room, it like fell down and it just halved it. It's actually like more of a trout pole. It's not a bass pole, so I didn't cry about it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Appreciate it. I'll have to give some of those a go. I'm usually electric shad, Tennessee shad, some sort of ghost shad.
That's still the same.
You're right there with us.
Yeah, you're right. Doing the same thing. Just we're a slightly different color, but you're doing light, dark, medium, right? Like
yeah. So Tennessee shad would probably be like on the threadfin side.
Yep.
Probably
threadfin, bluegill.
Electric shad would be your rainbow shad, and then ghost shad would be like our ghost rainbow.
Yeah.
So you're right there with us. Really, all you got to pick up is like a white, like a sight flash, and a dark, like a bluegill flash. As far as the specific flake, I don't really think it matters.
No.
I think it's really just light to dark is that. I mean, there are certain lakes that do prefer a color, but not for the most part.
Right.
You can kind of get away with a lot of stuff. Just go with whatever you have confidence in is the true answer. Berryessa. Oh, wait, hold on. I skipped one. Opinions on lakes being on cycles as far as good years and bad years. If you
That's
pay attention to cycles in California, it relates to how much water came in and how much forage goes into it. So a lot of vegetation that gets sucked into the water when the water rises helps the bottom of the ecosystem, which builds it all the way to the top. So last year, a lot of lakes rose up, and if you look at Clear Lake, you couldn't catch a dink on Clear Lake for what, a couple of years.
yeah.
Everything was like 2 pounds, 3 pounds. You couldn't catch a dink, and it was actually kind of worrisome to me that you couldn't find a dink. Last year, there's a billion dinks everywhere. Same thing as Berryessa. There's a billion dinks everywhere. They actually had somewhere to hide, and they had enough of the new forage in it.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely cycles.
And then right behind that becomes all of the
Bigger fish.
all the bigger fish, right? Because they eat their own on top of that. But you know that the trout are doing the same thing. The bluegill are doing the same thing. The crappie at Clear Lake is ridiculous right now. The pan size, like
They're
chunk
huge.
size, they're giant.
Great throwing jerk bait on them.
There is no way that a crappie colored glide has to kill on that lake at some point. There's no way they're not eating it. I have not been able to make it happen, but if y'all can make it happen, let me know, because that's got to be awesome.
Yeah.
Berryessa late winter pre-spawn, rank them: A-rig, jerkbait, jig, underspin, finesse swimmer, Cinco, crank. I am not good with cranking. I am better at Clear Lake and Delta for cranking.
I would throw, if I'm ranking them, I'd rather throw the A-rig just because of the draw power.
Currently,
right? Late winter, A-rig all day if I could do it, right? Just because I know that if I'm even in the area, the fish are going to look at it, right? Like,
if you'd asked us last year, we would have sent underspin, and if you'd asked us the year before that, we would have sent jerkbait.
Yeah.
For the first place.
Yeah.
They're all really good baits. I think I'd agree with A-rig on the top right now. Next would probably be underspin, or like a I think you said finesse swim bait, like a finesse swim bait that's on there. Cinco is killer.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't throw Cincos on lakes. They'll throw them on Clear Lake and Delta. I'm one of those, a lot of people's. I picked it up, and I always wonder why I don't do it more, and then I keep forgetting to pick it up. I hope that answers it. Oh, jig? Jig is something I want to get back into. I used to kill them on jig, and I stopped throwing it because the rod that I had, I didn't have anymore. I was borrowing a rod from my dad back in the day. You know, borrow where you just took it out of his stash and didn't tell him until he found out, and then he had to give it back. Yeah, that kind of borrow. And I had to give that rod back, and I couldn't afford to buy a better one or a new one. And I put it down, and I haven't picked it up, but I really want to. It's on my list. Camo Joe says Damador. Yeah, Damador. The crown jewel west of Shasta, have you guys fished it? If so, what's your critique on it? I haven't fished Shasta in a really long time.
Yeah.
I think I was in like middle school, high school. It's been a while.
Been a minute. Yeah, I've never fished Shasta.
It's a drive.
It's a 4 hours at least for us to get up there with a boat.
Yeah, I feel like it's a big beast. I think there's other lakes that I would go to. Well, I mean, the main reason why is there's other lakes that I feel like are still spotted bass fisheries that can also kick out fish, like Malones, Pedro, the other ones that I'm mentioning. I don't choose to go to Comanche. I'm forced to go to Comanche. We have a love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
It's the biggest Clearwater bag I've ever weighed in for Clearwater is on Comanche. I still hate that place. I had 3 copy go 714 at Oakdale. They're also that big um, at Clear Lake and at Berryessa if you find them on Berryessa.
Yeah.
There's some
There's some-
slabs, but Clear Lake is ridiculous.
Yeah, they're huge.
Like, I don't think we got to 3 pounds for one fish, but it was
Close.
it was
Like-
2 3/4 or something.
Yeah,
like that,
and
several
multiple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was stupid on jerk baits.
On jerk
with
baits,
forward
it's,
scan.
it's great.
Yeah, it was awesome. Around all the crappie boats are out there floating around in their little pod, and we're going out there with forward scan, picking them off on jerk baits, doing
Yeah.
circles around them, and then we'd like focus on a school, and then like people would move over. Like as we moved over, they'd move back to where we were, and then we just go back to where they came from and catch fish from over there. And
Yeah.
after like
I think they're really
after like
mad.
3 or 4 weeks, there was of us doing that because we were getting bored bass fishing, so we'd hit crappie. They started asking us like, "What are you guys doing?"
Yeah. It was
And then
good
when we
times.
told them it was a $25 jerk bait, I don't think they bought any of them.
No.
Not a fishing question. Uh-oh, I almost lost it. I don't know how I got here. Best place for wildlife.
Everywhere.
I'm guessing you're asking California. That's where we're from. Is California. Bay Area. You have Chabot area in the Bay Area if you're there. And then if you're up like Santa Rosa area, there's a whole lot of hiking and you have the coast and all that stuff. There's
Point Reyes.
kind of everything. The one really cool thing about California is me and my buddies did what they call a California day. We surfed in the morning, wakeboarded midday, mountain biked near the end of the day, and then snowboarded at the end of the day. So we did 4 different activities that is anywhere from ocean to snowboarding in the same exact day. We were tired at the end.
Yeah, it sounds exhausting.
Yeah, it was exhausting. I'm glad I did it when I was young.
Yeah.
But that's the cool thing about California, if you can handle the rest of the politics.
Yeah.
Max Scent Cinco. I just picked those up. I just picked those up in my unboxing video. You guys will see that. And I have not thrown them yet. Haven't had a chance to, but I definitely want to. Or it is on my list. Rage. That's his daughter saying rage. And yeah. That's on, what video is that? One of the Berryessa videos.
Yeah, one with berries.
Oh, the Crown Jewel west of Shasta? You don't want to say the name? Been there once. Actually, I can't say my nickname for it because it'll give it away. I went there before it went on a good turn, and it was nothing but dinks. It was nothing but dinks, but then like some solids. I'll tell you what lake it is later.
All right.
Yeah, it'll give it away.
Yeah. Don't do it now.
I do want to go back though. Definitely do want to go back there. That is a drive.
Yeah.
That's definitely a drive.
That's a couple day trip.
Yeah, that's a go up on Friday, come back on Sunday drive.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think about it.
Go up on Friday.
We might do a video on that. I don't know. I
let's
like
do
your
it.
suggestion, but we'll see. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that lake. I do appreciate that, Tyson. I do. Somebody got a message retracted. Lalo Flores. I don't know what you said, but I'm gonna guess you were a bot. How important is it to see bait fish on a Berryessa spot now? Will you fish a spot without seeing bait fish on the
Yes.
electronics? 100%,
Yes.
without a doubt.
No problem.
I actually have certain times of the year that I will, if I see a ton of bait fish, I'll leave.
Yeah.
You can't compete with the real thing. It's just what it is.
That's basic. And that's not just Berryessa, that's anywhere, right? Like if there is a ton of bait in a spot, it's really hard to compete with real bait.
If you can figure them out, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But if you're struggling, if you're seeing a bunch of bait and you're struggling, move.
Yeah.
Find somewhere that did have bait yesterday, or someplace the bait normally is, but it's not.
Or just outside of where the bait is.
Yeah. Spread it out.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm not afraid. If I can't see bait, I don't care. I'm fishing the area. I'm not fishing that. Lalo removed your comment. That's a secret I want to keep. Interesting.
That's why it got removed.
Comanche is James's kryptonite. No, I just hate it. Like, it's a lake that takes me, if I go there on Friday, it takes me until Sunday to figure it out. Like, Saturday afternoon is when I figure it out, and then Sunday is when I put it in. So if there's a major weather change on Saturday, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
I won't be able to pick it up. It takes me like 2 days on that lake to pick it up. We had a field day last May on Clear Lake. Stopped wherever I want. Wherever I smelled a strong fish odor and would kill the crappie. Spent 4 days up there. Yeah, Clear Lake's ridiculous for crappie. And if you want to get good with forward scan, crappie is where you want to go for that, especially like rattle arm or any of those.
Yeah, 100%.
Late to the party may have talked about it earlier. What jerk baits for these no-cal reservoirs?
Megabass. Megabass.
Megabass are expensive, but they work. It's really annoying.
The 110 Junior +1, the 110 +1. Those
most of the time it's +1. Don't sleep on the regulars though, but most of the time it is +1.
I've done really good at the Delta on the 110, not +1.
Yeah.
And just because it doesn't go as deep, killed them.
I've also done really good on a +1 on the Delta on the outside weed lines.
Yes.
And just letting the current drift it down.
I've done super good at the Delta on jerk baits in September time frame. And
if they just take you into the weeds, you just hold them. Just lean against them, hold them, get over the top of them, and hope they come out. Most of the time they come out though.
The only thing that I will say about the Megabass jerk baits is their hooks are super, super sharp, but they will bend. So loosen your drag and then just play the fish because they are going to bury. And if you catch a dink, say if you're fishing New Melones and you're throwing jerk baits, be extremely careful with those little spots because they will throw those hooks. And there's a video of me throwing my whole rod down because it got me.
Yeah, they'll definitely twitch at the last minute, and those other hooks will get you. Oh, Lalo's not a bot. I mentioned the name, and somebody asked you to remove it. Well, that's nice of you. Not everybody would remove it. I do appreciate that. Or I'm sure he appreciates it too, but scenario, you're on a motherlode lake on the first day of bright sun after several days of rain. What are your top 2, maybe 3 baits for the early morning low light window versus midday high sun? Go for it.
So you're talking
post-storm.
Post-storm,
high sun, no clouds.
And it's the day of post-storm, like it rained yesterday and it's clear now?
Yeah, no wind. I'll throw that in there too. Make it a little bit harder for you.
Oof, I'm gonna probably I'm gonna throw mother load. I'm gonna throw a rig.
I'm gonna throw an A-rig, see how they react to it.
Find the fish, and then break them down.
The one thing, not to mention the horrible name of forward scan, but the one thing that's A-rigs and forward scans are good for is A-rigs have a good draw power, and you can actually, you may not get bit with it, but you can see where they rise from, and you can tell what depth they're at. They rise from, and now you can focus on that area. With the boring things like a drop shot and a kid's wet sock. I mean, sorry, a Ned rig.
It works.
Yeah.
Works really good.
Yeah, I don't.
There was a time that I went to New Melones, Motherlode Lake, and I wanted to find the fish, and it was when the water was down. There was a lot of wood in the water, and I'd throw that A-rig and I'd keep it high in the water column and just burn it across the top of the wood and just see things. I never caught a fish on it.
No.
But I saw the fish coming up out of it, and I was like, all right, I like this area, move on. And just kept doing that,
and you could
to try to figure them out.
You could literally burn down the bank just on 5, 6 on the trolling motor and just go down the bank, hucking that thing, and then you'll notice after a little while, the fish will only rise from a pocket or a point or wood or no wood or whatever, and you can basically put together where the fish are in a pattern and then go back and actually figure out how to get those fish to bite.
Yep, break it down. Even like then throwing in the wood, throwing a Cinco into it, free weight Cinco, and just let it flutter down in there. Stuff like that, right?
And if you don't have forward scan, then it would basically be, I think I'd still throw an A-rig and see if I can get short struck. Because if you get short struck, then they're letting you know, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
And then you can pay attention to those areas and go back to it. And then the other thing would be probably just drop shot.
Yeah.
I'd pick up the Sorry Steve, which is watermelon candy,
Flick shake.
4.8 flick shake, the Jackall flick shake, and I'd just chuck that thing around, especially with that high sun.
Yep.
The other thing I'd do is probably morning dawn.
Yeah.
Would probably be my things that I would go to.
Yeah, but you use a bait that you could find the fish and then slow down on that school and then pick them apart. Unless
you were on it. If you were on them in those previous days while it was raining, and you were already on them, then you just go to that area and figure them out. They're not. They may move around a little bit, but they're not going to completely run away.
Yeah.
Unlike Comanche, where they're run away.
They never ran away. They're still there.
Yeah.
You just have to slow down.
I have such a hard time casting the +1, but kill on the 110s. The +1 you need, if you don't do spinning rod, you need one of the higher quality reels, unfortunately, or something that has a really good free spool.
Yeah.
Basically.
It's all about adjusting it.
I throw it on braid, 15-pound braid, to leader.
Yeah.
To like 10 or 12 leader, depending on what the day is or how sharp the teeth
are.
But that braid helps throw a lot better. And then get a good rod for it, or the right, I shouldn't say right rod, but a rod that helps launch it.
Yeah, definitely.
Tyson's gonna inbox me his secrets on tough days. I mean, you can share if you have to, but you don't have to if you don't want to. Sometimes I feel bad if I get a secret from someone, because if I end up using it on a video in like a tournament, I don't want to feel bad for it. I don't know how to explain that. It's hard to.
You don't want to show other people your stuff.
I don't want to show other people's stuff.
Yeah.
I'm completely okay with showing my stuff and sharing my experiences. It's hard for me to share other people's experiences. I've been hit up in the past before for Delta. There's a guy that hit me up for a spot on the Delta that was like guaranteed honey hole, all that stuff. And I do not doubt one bit that he didn't have a honey hole. But I didn't want to blow it up. Like, he's like, oh, you can make a good video. And I'm like, I'm not. People can figure out where you're at. And I don't want to blow up someone else's stuff. I'd rather blow up my own stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you could.
Though I
share
do
it
have
with
a
me,
I
just-
do have a theory that there is no secret spots anymore.
There is no secret spot.
There's no secret spots, but
Not with electronics these days.
there are ways to fish spots, or the way you fish them
Yes.
is what really produces the fish.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Everyone can fish the same spot. Like, there's definitely times where I'm not afraid to go behind somebody, even if I watch 5 boats fish an area.
Yeah.
Especially if they're like in our club and I know how they fish. I know that my odds of going in behind them and catching fish are still an upper odd of catching fish.
Yeah.
Versus if I go
100%.
in behind him in a tournament, I don't know, I may just pick another spot. Because we kind of think the same but different at the same time. I'll still go behind him if I think I'm on a different pattern than him. But you kind of have to, that only helps if you know the person that you're fishing behind.
Yeah.
You don't always know that. I don't know how I got sidetracked on that one. What do you consider a good numbers day in amount of fish caught? It depends on the day. Sometimes 2 is an amazing number. And
Yeah.
Sometimes
I'll tell you,
50 is a horrible number depending on how good the day is.
Yeah. I will tell you that, you know, when I go into a tournament, most of the times I'm just hoping for the 5 just to fill my limit on some of these tournaments that are
Some grinder tournaments.
post front, water temperature dropping, just the 5, and sometimes getting the 2 is what really does it, right? Like, I've done good in tournaments by catching 2 fish, 2-3 fish, just figuring that much out, and other people not figuring it out.
I've literally taken, I want to say it was 3rd. It was in Berryessa. I took 3rd place with 2 fish.
Yeah. Was that
That was when I think you won that day.
Yeah.
You won that day. Yeah.
It was a snow day.
No. This is this last year, or when you were fishing with John.
Yeah.
I had 2 fish, and I still had 3rd for the day, which blew my mind. I didn't think we even had a shot.
I had
just that tough for everyone.
I think I had 15 pounds or something.
We had like 11 or 12 boats on the water, and
I had like 15 pounds. I only caught 5 bass.
Yeah.
That whole day, 5 bass.
Yeah.
But that keeper bass, 5 bass.
Still a good
I caught
day.
some dings.
I will say, from recording myself long enough, the average fish catch I'd probably say is like 10 to 15 fish is the amount of average across all of the days that we'll catch. That could be like a 6-hour day or an 8-hour day or whatever, but it kind of seems right in that 10-ish area. Definitely, that's average, right? So there's definitely days where I'm having troubles going through the fish catches to find out which ones I want to put in the video.
Yeah.
And I just basically scan through till I find the bigger ones. We're probably going to wrap this up here in about 6 minutes or so. I don't want to get this too long. Name of the club is the Fairfield Sassoon Bass Reapers.
Yep.
We are obviously out of Fairfield. If you go to bassreapers.org, that's BASSREAPERS.org. We have our website, and our meetings are our first Tuesday of the month. And if you go to our back page, you can see our schedule, or the
contacts.
Contacts. Go to the contacts all the way down at the bottom. You can see our schedule of where we're fishing. Throw it on fluoro spinning tackle, Tatsu or J Samurai, 6 to 8 pound test. Yeah, you're right where you need to be.
Yeah.
I do. What was that? Right, there was a braided line that I threw. I can't remember what it was. I actually had troubles. I couldn't throw a jerkbait with that braided line. And it actually would get wind knots in it, and I was having issues. I switched to Power Pro, and my casting came back. Just
Yeah.
generic Power Pro or Max Quattro. Those are the only two I throw.
I throw mainly the generic Power Pro.
Yeah. I only throw Max Quattro on a couple of different rods. For the most part, it's generic Power Pro is what I'm throwing. Different sizes, obviously. Edwin says, hi, bro. What's up, Edwin?
What's happening?
Oh, I'm hitting that thing. Do you think Clear Lake is pre-spawn yet? It's moving out of winter. It's not quite, it's not dead winter, but it's not pre-spawn yet.
I think Clear Lake cycles multiple times.
Clear Lake spawn is months.
Yes.
Like, they start before a lot of other lakes.
And they end.
And they end way after other lakes. I've caught bedfish in late June.
Yes.
It was?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like late June.
Yeah.
Catching bedfish. And then that same year, I was catching them in March.
Yeah.
Or like early March on beds.
Yeah.
So they're moving all over. That's why that lake is so ridiculous and so healthy.
Yeah.
When's the next Berryessa tournament for the club? Is April. April. Not looking forward to that one. I am looking forward to it, but I'm also not. Fishing with Camo Joe, 100% respect. Not 100% sure what that's on, but yeah, thank you. Ashley Cortez says hi. Hi, Ashley. Was there any other tips you could think of?
Pay attention. Pay attention to all the small things.
Little things.
The little things. And don't be afraid to try different baits.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to mix it up. Even if you're catching fish, don't be afraid to mix it up with something else.
And if
that's when you learn the most.
That's when you're going to learn it.
And put yourself in the bad scenarios.
Yeah.
That's kind of basically it.
And for the wintertime, I know it's horrible. Most people have trouble in the wintertime, but they go out when it's nice, right?
Yeah.
You wait until it's 8 o'clock to leave the house to go out there. You might have missed a big window that...
Our last several trips, there is an immediate window when the sun comes up, and it shuts off like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and doesn't open again until like noon.
Yeah. So don't be afraid to bundle up, go out there, and try to find these fish because they're out there.
Yeah. Next week will probably be a regular video. I'm not sure where we're gonna fish next weekend.
Yeah.
I kind of want to do Maloney's, but I'm not sure. The video that's coming out. Oh, actually, no, I take that back. I jumped a week. I apologize. I jumped a week. Next week is an unboxing video. It's going to come out on Wednesday, 4 p.m. And it's just some stuff prep for some tournaments and some other stuff leftover from Black Friday. The week after that, I'm not sure where we're fishing. I am on call this weekend. I don't get to fish.
I do. I'll be at BAM Saturday.
Yeah, he's fishing BAM at Clear Lake on Saturday. I will be, I'll be stuck at work. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, until next time.
I'm going to sign off here, guys. Thank you. I appreciate all of you guys who watched and all of you guys who comment. You guys are awesome. I'm new to this whole live thing. I greatly appreciate all of you. And until next time, I hope you get them.